Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1057B, and today's date is August 24th, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. Government and Turkey Begin Carving Out an Exclusion Zone. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, in the past couple of months, we've seen many different terrorist acts. Many of them are false flags. I would say 99.9999% of them are false flags. And we've seen the governments create new laws to take the rights away from the people. And they're doing this on purpose. This is all done on purpose because they need to control the populations. And what happens is their stories, well, they conflict with each other because, on one hand, they're telling us that there's terrorism. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. The government will protect you. On the other hand, they're saying you don't need a weapon, you don't need a weapon. And that's a very conflicting story between the two. Because think about it. If there are terrorists, and we believe their official story, wouldn't you want to protect your family? I know I would. And a lot of the Europeans are saying to themselves, well, wait a minute. If we have to worry about, first of all, refugees coming in, if we have to worry about terrorism, if we have to worry about all of this, maybe we should have a weapon to protect ourselves. And we can see an increasing number of Europeans, they are turning to firearms and other self-defense weapons. Now, in many countries, it is very difficult to get a weapon. So in certain areas, we're seeing many of the people buying pepper spray or a bat or something like that. But those individuals who can get a weapon, they are getting them. We see a rise in Switzerland. A lot of individuals there are getting weapons. Germany, they're buying pepper spray, which makes no sense because if we believe the official story, the terrorists have weapons. You cannot defend yourself with pepper spray. So we can see there's a lot of conflicting information coming out, and they're trying to cover it up because they don't want people to defend themselves because they need to control the populations. They need to make sure that they're in full control. And a population with a weapon, they can't control them. The population then controls the government. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. This is why our founding fathers said freedom of speech, freedom of the press. You defend that with a weapon against a government who wants to take that away from you. Because if you don't have that weapon, how do you defend free speech? How do you defend freedom of the press? How do you say to the government, you can't do this? With pepper spray? With a bat? No. You do it with a weapon. Because a population of millions who have a weapon in hand is a population that will control their destiny. A population that doesn't have a weapon in hand ends up in FEMA camps, ends up dead, ends up controlled. And this is why governments around the world, this is why central banks around the world are trying so hard to take the weapons away from the people. Now, out in North Korea, we understand the United States, South Korea, they're trying to provoke the North. We understand there's a drill going on. And as the drill kicked off, the United States said that they detected a ballistic missile test, saying that North Korea's ballistic missile is provocation. Well, that's kind of odd because the United States is having these drills right at the border of North Korea with thousands upon thousands of troops, and North Korea is doing a test. The United States does many, many tests. Russia does many tests. Iran does many tests. Many of the countries do tests of their systems. It doesn't mean they're going to be used. And of course, they're saying it was fired from a submarine. And we can see right now that the U.S. condemns this. So when we put this into perspective, the U.S. and South Korea, they have these massive drills to provoke North Korea. North Korea decides to fire a missile, if this is true. And then the U.S. condemns North Korea. Again, North Korea is the wild card. They're hoping that North Korea does something. And you're going to see the United States and South Korea continually provoke North Korea because they do believe that North Korea eventually will do something. And if they don't, they can just do it and say they did it. And nobody will be the wiser. And boom, we're off to war. We see out in Afghanistan, dozens of students were trapped inside an American university after gunmen stormed the campus. And the details are very hazy right now. And we can see that this was pre-planned. Because as soon as this was done, the United States government central bankers, they came out with a new warning in Afghanistan. And it looks like this was already pre-planned. And they're telling individuals, American citizens, to get out of Afghanistan right now. Which tells us that the United States is getting ready to mount a huge offensive in this area. Now, China has begun construction of a new naval base in the African nation of Djibouti. This new base is going to be on a 90-acre plot of land, and it's expected to be completed next year. Now, once this is finished, it will be China's first overseas military base. It's going to be right next to the American base. I mean, not right next to it, but right in the same general area. And there's going to be a weapons storage site. There's going to be maintenance facilities for ships and helicopters. It's also going to be manned by Chinese Marines and Special Force units. And the reason why China is building this base is because of their investment in Africa. Because as we know, everyone is fighting for Africa, the natural resources in this area. We have the EU trying to make deals. We have China and Russia in Africa. And we have the United States in Africa. Because everyone wants to get the natural resources, oil, and everything else in this area. And this is an area where things most likely will get out of hand. Because as we know, the United States is in Sudan, causing a huge problem there. Because they want the oil. They want control of that area, just like they want control of Libya, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Iran. Because without continually spreading into other countries, taking over and controlling their natural resources, the central bank system dies very, very quickly. We see Russia decided to keep their Caliber missile-armed Black Sea ships in the Mediterranean until next month. Because they see what's happening in Syria. And they're saying the situation in Syria requires they remain in the Eastern Mediterranean until maybe late September. And we can see what's happening in the Middle East. Things are really starting to heat up there. We see the U.S. Air Force, they're going to be joining the Bulgarians in patrolling the airspace in that area. So we're going to have 2 U.S. Air Force F-15 fighters. They'll begin conducting joint air policing measures. And NATO is launching this new measure for the first time in response to a request by the Bulgarian authorities because they're very nervous about Russian aggression. And we know there is no Russian aggression. And I'm not taking sides here, saying Putin is fantastic, wonderful, and great. What we're seeing here is that the United States government central bankers, they're pushing a certain agenda of war. We see Putin, Russia, China trying to calm the situation down. They're trying to build their economies. they're trying to make deals with other countries because their system, the BRIC system, is starting out. The US dollar system is dying. And they realize there's no reason for war. We don't have to have war. But we know the US government central bankers, they will not give up their system. Even though it's dying, they still want that transition to a new system. And the only way to do this is to cover it up somehow. And the way they're going to do it, most likely, a good high percentage here is with war. We've seen it done many, many times before. Now, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden is talking to the different nations, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and he's telling the members of the alliance, don't worry, we are 100% committed to our NATO obligations, including Article 5, which if any country is attacked, NATO, the United States, they all join in and fight for that country. And what they're telling these countries is they're ready. They're ready for this war. So once they start it, they'll be there to help them. Which means the people in the United States will be drafted and sent overseas. That's what that really means. What it really means is all the Europeans will also get drafted and they'll be sent to the front lines. Because this is what happens during war. Our fearless leaders, who are no leaders at all, they stay in the background. They stay in offices. They wine and dine people, while all of us are out there fighting for their central bank system. But this time around, we need to call them out on it. We need to say, no, we know what's going on here. And my hope is that throughout the world, we all stand up, we realize what's going on, we band together and say no. We see out in Gaza, the United States is urging Americans to leave this area immediately. And it looks like Israel might be getting ready to attack Gaza once again. And this is a situation that we need to watch. We see Turkey formally requests U.S. extradite Gulen. And they're saying, well, this is not for the coup. We just want him. Now, the U.S. Justice Department sent agents to Turkey to gather their own evidence, which really means they're going there to tell them to cut this out. But we can see right now, Turkey is really playing both sides. On one hand, they want the economic deals with Iran and Russia. Turkey wants the Turkish Stream. They want to do business. On the other hand, they want Assad removed. And we're seeing this right now. Now, there is a report that Turkey has notified Russia about their operations in Syria. Now, it's hard to believe that Russia knows about this because Syria came out and they said this is a breach of sovereignty. The question is, why would Russia allow Turkey to invade Syria? So I think Turkey actually told Russia something different, that we're going to be securing our borders, and Russia probably said, okay. And then Turkey went out and brought tanks and invaded Syria. And the Syrian Foreign Ministry was out there saying, this is an invasion. They just invaded Syria. Now, Turkey is out there saying that they're going after the Islamic State. They're backing the rebels. And the U.S. is giving them air support. And the question is, what is really going on here? Well, it looks like the actions of Turkey are telling us that they're still working with the U.S. They still want Assad out. They still want the buffer zone. And this mission is Euphrates Shield. And we can see this has been planned for quite a while. We knew there was a huge amount of troop buildup We knew they were practicing this a while ago. And coincidentally, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden arrived in Turkey hours before the operation. Coincidence? I think not. Now, of course, Erdogan is out there saying that this is all for securing the border. Well, what does he really mean by that? Well, the question we have to ask is, what is the Turkish goal? Turkey's actions, which should go some length to demonstrate that the Turks are still focused on destroying the Syrian government, as well as preventing the establishment of the Kurdish enclave either in Syria or Turkey. So first, the Turkey military is acting as the frontal assault for the moderate rebel forces. So they're bombing to help the moderate rebels. And they're marching directly behind the Turkish military to hold the territory that they've conquered. So the United States is giving them air cover for all of this. And we know the United States told Syria and Russia, do not enter this area. This is an area which is completely off limits. Second, the Turkish invasion was accompanied by the Americans, which clearly indicates that the Turks are operating closely with the United States. So we have Turkey playing both sides now. They're working with Russia and Iran economically. They're working with the United States militarily. And what it seems at this point, what they're doing is they're carving out an exclusion zone, a buffer zone, a safe zone, a no-bomb zone, whatever you want to call it. But it looks like they're creating this area where they can use it as a forward operating base for future missions. Now remember, the United States is building 2 bases in this area. They're complete now. The French are in Syria building a base. Now, they did not get permission from Assad to do this. They went into the country and decided to do this on their own. So Erdogan and the United States, they're creating this carved out region. This is what they wanted from the beginning, and we see it happening right in front of our eyes. Even though the United States continually said, no, we don't want this. Now, once this buffer zone is created, I'm almost positive Turkey will say, okay, the border is now closed because they have the buffer zone. Now the question is, how is Russia going to take this? Will there be international observers? Most likely not, but we'll have to wait and see. Because they will use this buffer zone and say it's separate and apart from what is happening. And this is exactly the plan from the beginning. We know it because we've been discussing this for a very long time. So we're going to have Syria and Russia and China now, and if you want to add in India, looking at this situation, and they're going to say, well, this can't happen. You're dividing a sovereign nation. And we're going to have to wait to see what happens. Now remember, the United States government central bankers, their backs are against the wall. Russia, Syria, they're destroying the Islamic State, they're destroying the proxy army. They need a way to protect them. So they need to create this zone to protect their forces, where these forces can retreat back to an area, replenish, and then push forward once again. And this is exactly what they're trying to do. We see at the same time this is all happening, governments, corporate media out there telling us that Assad has kept chemical weapons. He hid them, and he still has them. Now this is all propaganda once again, because they're going to be making a push into this area. Because again, we have to remember, the United States government central bankers, they're racing against time. The illusion is falling apart. They understand this. And they can't let the illusion fall apart. They need to start something to cover up what is coming. We see the U.S. Homeland Security. They want handheld radiation detection devices. Now the question is, what do they need these for? Well, they want them for a catastrophic event. They want wearable nuclear radiation detection devices because they're nervous about a dirty bomb attack. Remember a couple months ago, maybe even a year now, where Israel was testing dirty bombs in the desert, suitcase size? And we can see right now that they are getting these devices because they're preparing for what is coming. And that is the next event. Because as everything breaks down, as the illusion dies off, they will need an event to convince the population that we need to go to war. I know it's hard to believe, but we've been tracking this for a very long time. We've been watching the troop movements. We've been watching the military assets. We've been watching what the U.S. has been doing in the Middle East, the Pacific, Ukraine, Eastern Europe. And over time, it's been building up, been building up, been building up. And there will be a point in time when the buildup is complete, when the event will occur. And this will be the great transition. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.